all of our children, not just our girls, but boys and girls alike, our goal is to draw attention to our countenance, to our face. And that helps us to decide what things we wear and what things are modest and appropriate. Okay, our law resource for today, we're going to be going through learning about bankruptcy laws.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Thursday, May 25th, 2023, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Well, the Duggar Docuseries, Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets, will be out in a week from tomorrow, I think, June 2nd. And the docuseries is set to expose the Institute and Basic Life Principles along with some of the secrets about the Duggar family. According to the directors and the producers of this series, Josh Duggar represents the tip of the iceberg when it comes to when they're looking at the Institute and Basic Life Principles. And when you're looking at the scope of the Duggar family, Josh Duggar is the tip of the iceberg. You know, a lot of people want to blame all the people, like something must have happened to Josh, or it was Grandpa Duggar, or it was this, or it was that. You don't have to look very far in the Duggar family home to see where Josh learned how to be who he was. His name is Jim Bob Duggar. And yes, Josh Duggar is just the tip of the iceberg. And Jim Bob and his friends are at the head now of this organization. And the organization is apparently dubious and insidious. And we've talked about that extensively. I am hoping that early next week I'll be able to share more details about this. And but for this, let's talk about what the producers had to say and get into some of the details about what my thoughts are about whether or not you should be shocked, surprised that Josh is the tip of the iceberg. And on top of that, I'd like to talk with you about how the Duggars are currently responding to all of this. And that is that Jim Bob has basically commissioned Jed and Katie Duggar to be the spokespeople now in terms of like leading the charge for this group and doing public speaking and, you know, really being involved in the marketing for this group and the indoctrination of young people, because Katie and Jed are going to be speaking at an event hosted at Fort Rock Family Camp, which is the camp that's owned by Austin Forsyth's parents, and where Joy and Austin spend time with their kids, and they also work at from time to time. And they are hosting this Discipleship Summit, which will include the pastor from the Duggars Church, a prominent speaker that speaks at the IBLP meetings, and Katie and Jed Duggar. So it's Katie and Jed Duggar that are going to be earmarked now as the new face of the Duggar family for this group. So let's dive into today's topic. Before we do, can you please do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, please subscribe to my channel if you've not yet subscribed by clicking on the subscribe button down below. Make sure to click on the bell so you can get notifications of any time I go live or new content loads. If you have something to say, make sure to say it and share this video with your friends. Okay, so the first part of this video, we're going to talk about what the producers had to say about the story. Now, this is going to be a limited docuseries, so it's going to have 4 total episodes. It will premiere on June 2nd on Amazon Prime. So yes, you will have to get a subscription to Prime Video if you'd like to watch this. And Olivia Christ, who is the executive producer and one of the directors, says that Josh Duggar is really the tip of the iceberg in this group. So this is what she told People magazine. There are so many families that have been hurt by this and have not had a voice, not for a lack of trying, for many, many, many years. I hope the takeaway is really hearing from the survivors, hearing what they've been through. And then I think also for people still trapped in a fundamentalist or IBLP group, that hopefully this is a chance for them to say, hey, it is possible to get out, and that they are not alone. She said that the system itself is inherently abusive and has no education for children when it comes to their anatomy, their development, puberty, and education around being intimate with someone. Now, I will say that the wisdom books do talk about being intimate, but it's always about like, they talk very graphically about intimacy in these wisdom books, but it's about adults and it's about doing things as adults and the importance of being together as adults. And then everything else is about fear and shame and not properly teaching kids about development that's natural and making natural development problematic. So she said, I think throughout the show, we see that in so many areas. The system like this, that's unfortunately how they're set up with this authoritarian notion of men having all the control and women and children must be submissive to that control. And I think that's just a recipe for just absolute disaster. And she said one of the biggest problems that she thinks that is tantamount to the system creating so much problems for the children is that the kids in this cult are being absolutely neglected from an educational standpoint. So they are not receiving any like quality education. And she said, but one of the things I want to highlight is really the educational neglect that happened to a lot of these children. And it's really astonishing. Their education was not sufficient. There are organizations out there, the Coalition for Responsible Homeschooling, which is a great one, that are doing really good work to advocate for rights of children. Julia Willoughby said that she hopes that our series encourages people to find their voice and speak out and be brave and take the risk and have a new type of faith. And, you know, one of the things in another interview with In Touch, they said was that it took a while for Jill Duggar to agree to be a part of this docuseries. It took a little bit more coaching and care for her to be able to want to share her story. But after time and just thinking about the important aspect of it, that she really felt a duty to be able to share her side of the story. And some of the things that you'll hear about are, you know, a lot of the aspects of the show and how the Duggars position themselves on the show. So the show was offered to the Duggars in like the docuseries or the documentaries that they did for the Duggars on Discovery Network started around 2004. And it was like 2007, 2008 where the series launched for 16 kids and pregnant, 17 kids and 17 kids and counting. It started out with 17 kids and counting, then 18 kids and counting, then 19 kids and counting, and then it turned into Counting On. They served as a marketing face for the Institute in Basic Life Principles. And when they were offered this show, there was a bunch of people in Jim Bob's world, that were telling them, like, listen, do not do this. Like, you've just had this horrible thing that Josh has done to the girls. The girls are still recovering from this. And you just had this investigation. Like, this will not be good. Get your house in order, get your kids in order, take care of your kids, focus on the care of your children. Don't do this because it's going to put your kids and expose them, because this will come out. And those friends who were trying to counsel them not to do the show were echoed out and like silenced by the voices of the people from the Institute in Basic Life Principles. Specifically, elders of the church have told me that Dodie Murphy was brought in, who was one of the directors of, he went and founded the Moscow branch, the Russian side of the IBLP. He also helped write all of the curriculum for Bill Gothard for their medical side of the IBLP. And he was the guy that was in the room with Bill Gothard when he confronted and spoke to the women and the victims of his, when he wanted to hear their grievances that they had against him. And Dodie was there to help facilitate those conversations. And it was Dodie Murphy that my sources say were telling Jim Bob, you have to do this show. This would be a great opportunity. You can spread the word of the gospel. You can spread our message. And another one that was helping with those decisions was Debbie Query, who apparently also was close to Bill Gothard and key in this moving train to get the Duggars onto TLC so that they could basically push the Institute in Basic Life principle like forward. And the Duggars ultimately ended up sidelining all of their friends that told them not to do the show, and went with the Institute in Basic Life principle peers and mentors who basically said you should do the show. I don't know if Bill Gothard was a part of those conversations or not, but Dodie Murphy allegedly was, and his push of Jim Bob really is what pushed Jim Bob into the let's do this. And Jim Bob then got on the show, and yes, he was recruiting for the Institute in Basic Life principle, but he found a cash cow. He was able to utilize his children as commodities, and he was able to monetize all aspects of his life, and he was able to create, he had more kids, and his kids got married, and his kids had kids, and they were able to create a show where Jim Bob, through the IBLP, had such tight control of his family, and then made it impossible for the kids to leave. And as we talked in another video, Jill accuses him of forging her name on a contract, which is absolutely illegal. And if you, again, want to know where this is going, if you want to know why Josh is the way he is, you can look at the Institute of Basic Life Principles, but all you got to do is look at his dad. Jim Bob Duggar had a wife that had 19 children. She could not say no to him in the bedroom. She was not treated with respect or care. She was constantly told that her voice didn't matter. I've heard stories of Jim Bob telling friends to make their wives shut up and not speak and get their wives in line. That's allegedly his attitude. And so he has no care or respect for Michelle. What are the boys going to learn from that? That's what they learn. And that's how they become. And then they have a dad who's literally a fiend for the extracurricular activities because he's getting his wife pregnant all the time. And they do it all the time, regardless. So even when she's pregnant, she has to give it to him whenever he wants it. It's an absolutely disastrous culture for women. So Josh is a product of that. He really does represent the tip of the iceberg, because when you look at the scope of all the different families that are out there, there are so many other families that have stories like Josh. They have a member of the family that's like Josh. They are stories of this culture that are far worse than Josh. There are men that are currently incarcerated for doing things to children that were members of this group. There are men that are currently incarcerated for killing people that were members of this group that grew up on the ATI curriculum. There are members of this group that so many SOs, and they run a prison ministry. So obviously you can be redeemed. And so when the guys get locked up, they can just send them out to the prison ministry and they can become right with God. And then they can use those men reforming themselves as testimony. So they prey on prisoners, bringing bad people and bringing some people that have problematic backgrounds into the system. And then they can hide in there. And then on top of that, if they do offend, they can hide in there because that's how they roll. So when we talk about what are the Duggars' next steps and how do they respond to this, the Duggars are responding to this in a very subtle way, and that is by they are pushing Jed and Katie Duggar into the spotlight, and they are becoming the focal point for the brand of the Duggars. And that is because Jed is cookie cutter. He speaks the Duggar speak. He's brainwashed. He'll do whatever his dad says. He has a personality that's very much like Josh. He is a decent speaker publicly. He has a little bit of an ego and an arrogance to him, and he's not timid, shy, coy like some of his brothers are. And so he has more of that outgoing charisma that Josh has, which is, in my opinion, superficial. And he's like Jim Bob's next golden child. Josh has failed him, and so now we're on to Jed. A group called the Disciple Summit, which is affiliated with the IBLP, even though not directly, and the Duggars, is hosting an event. It's a camp at the Fort Rock family camp, which is owned by Austin Forsythe's dad, Terry, and his mom, Roxanne. And it's an event where the youth are going to learn about having a good relationship with God. And Jed and Katie are featured speakers. And let's just talk about how vague this description is, but it says, at the Discipleship Summit, young people will be encouraged to make Christ the first priority in their hearts and make wise decisions throughout their lives. The sessions and activities of the Discipleship Summit are planned with these goals in mind: to motivate single young people to choose to seek God first, to discover his desires and design for their lives, and to love him with all of their hearts. And we have a ton of fun along the way. Guys and girls are divided into separate teams, and friendly competition between the teams is held throughout camp. And it's July 26th through 29th, and it starts at 5 p.m. on a Wednesday and ends on Saturday at 2 p.m. I'm sorry, it was in July, not in June. And the speakers are the pastor, Bob Gray II, and Jed and Katie Duggar. It doesn't say what they're going to speak about, and that's literally the description. That's all. You have no idea. The accommodations, there's a frequently asked questions section. What it basically says, oh, you're going to stay in a bunk. Here's the registration. It's $190. We have a right to refuse people. If you sign up, we'll refund your money. You have to be 15 and older, but if you're younger than 15, as long as one of your siblings is 15, you can come. So young kids are being invited to this. They don't tell you who the staff is. They don't tell you who will be working. They don't tell you what the itinerary is. It's very vague. And you're just expected to pay the amount. It's $190. Like I said, space is limited. And you're supposed to just like send your kids there trusting that these people are going to take care of them, knowing nothing about them, knowing nothing about Terry Forsyth. And, here's the thing is it's probably friends of the Duggars and their kids that go to these events. But at the same time, they're going to a camp, doesn't tell you what staff works there, doesn't tell you what the itinerary is. You'll be fed and you have to bring your own linens and food or linens and bedding, and you can't swim. You have to wear a dress code. Girls can wear pants, but they should be wearing skirts. And yeah, it's so bizarre. The whole event is so bizarre. John Duggar has spoken at this in the past. Dwayne Swanson has spoken at this in the past. Other Duggars have also spoken at this. Jim Bob has spoken at this in the past. So now the new face for the IBLP and for the indoctrination for their marketing is Jed and Katie Duggar. So he's lost Anna and Josh. He's not going to count on the girls to do this. All the other girls, they've left to the reformed side. So now Jim Bob is sinking in and saying, okay, it's Jed. And so kids are going to be learning from Jed Duggar about being a good kid and putting your relationship in with God. Let's not talk about what happened in Jed's house and the rules that Jed follows and the father that Jed has and the brother he has and the system that Jed's from. Let's not talk about any of that. Nope. Let's just focus on indoctrinating kids and making them understand what God has for your life, what the design is, which is authoritarian. And yeah. So Jim Bob's response is, my answer is Jed and Katie Duggar. Kind of not surprising. So tell me what your thoughts are about this in the comments below. Bye, guys.